Hi class, today we're doing questions in problem solving. There are actually 4 different types of word problems that are presented in section 1.7 in the textbook. Today in our lecture we're only going to cover 2 of them, problems involving interest and other ones with mixture. But in reality all 4 types of problems are going to be approached in the same manner. What we want to realize is that we have a base formula for each of these, and the base formula is multiplication. Notice the multiplication in each of these. Some of the interest formula has variables, I equals PR. The price formula doesn't. It just varies depending on what you want to use per problem. But these 2 different formulas have multiplication in them. Now the problems we're going to do aren't as simple as just multiplying. We're going to combine multiplying and addition, and we're going to use some tables to help us set up the problems. So I want you to pay attention to how we set this up. I'm going to write the formulas at the top each time I do this. Hopefully it helps you organize your thoughts better. Alright, in problem number 1 we have Betsy, a recent retiree, requires $6,000 per year in extra income. She has $50,000 to invest and can invest in B-rated bonds paying 15% per year or in a certificate of deposit paying 7% per year. So we can see in this question that we have one type of interest rate and a second one as well. And we want to put those both into the same equation. So we want to start off by writing the first formula we have. That is, interest is equal to principal times rate. I'm just spacing them out to give myself room to work. Now I have 2 different situations, but I want to have at least 2 lines. But I notice that we're going to invest some of our money in one and some of our money in another, and I want to have a total amount, so I'm going to put a 3rd line. Alright, and I'm just going to draw some lines. Here I have a chart, and this chart is going to be filled in with the information from the word problem. So from the word problem, I know I have 2 different types of interest. We have the B-rated bonds, and I have the certificates of deposit. And so each of those have different percentage rates. The B bonds are paying 15%, and the certificate of deposit is paying 7%. You can write them as decimal points. Alright, now we want to gain interest, so this is the column I'm most interested in. I want to figure out the interest, and I do that by figuring out putting in a little bit more information from here. Together, we want them to earn a total of $6,000 in interest. We also know that total we have $50,000 to invest. And this right here is going to be one of our keys. We don't know what the interest rate is combined. We can't do that because we're actually putting our money into separate piles. But what I have here, I'm going to fill in the rest. I'm going to say that I'm going to put a certain amount of money in one bank account, and I'm going to put a different amount in here. Now I don't want to use the variable y. If I do, that's too many variables. I can't solve for x and y at the same time. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is say, if I put $10,000 in the bonds, then I'm going to put $40,000 in the CD. How am I doing that? By making sure they add up to $50,000. So over here, I'm going to say $50,000 minus however much I invest in the first one. And so to be able to fill in the rest, we're going to use this formula here at the top. It says principal times rate. So I'm going to get 0.15x in this one, and I'm going to get 0.07 times 50,000 minus x. Now I know that I'm going to earn a certain amount of interest in one and a certain amount of interest in the other. total interest I want to earn is 6,000. So I'm going to say, I'm going to add these amounts together. And I want the total amount to be 6,000. So just simplifying this a little bit, we're going to get 3,500. If I multiply that out. And then I don't have much room to write a lot of my steps. But I know that if I subtract my x's, I'm going to get 0.08 x, and subtracting 3,500 on both sides, get 2,500. And doing this division, I used my calculator. I don't expect you to do it in your head. I get 31,250. Now, that's my answer for X, which means that's how much I should put in the B bonds. And then to figure out how much I should put into the certificate of deposit, I would just use the formula that I put right in here, 50,000 minus this. But then your answer has to be in words. So you're going to say $31,250 in B-rated bonds. And you'll get 18,750 in the certificate of deposit. You need to make sure that you use the labels that it was used in the word problem itself. Please don't just say X and Y. Make sure you use any units. In this case, the units are dollars. But the hardest part was getting the equation, right? So remember, to get this equation, I have to fill in this information in the chart. And I put the black parts from the word problem, and I put the red parts from what I need to figure out. And we'll do a second problem. For question number 2, we're going to look at another interest problem. And we see that we have a certain amount of money that's being loaned out. That's going to be our total amount being loaned. And it has part of it done at a certain interest rate and part of it done at a different interest rate. So we do need to use our interest formulas. And then we also have a total amount of interest received versus a total amount loaned out. So you want to make sure you know that. Alright, so let's go ahead and start by writing our first equation at the top of the page. That's going to be interest is equal to principal times rate. Give yourself some space to write. Now we have two different scenarios. We have part of it loaned at a certain interest rate and part of it loaned at a different interest rate. And then we have the total amounts. So I'm going to put a third line. Now we don't really have names for these. We have part 1 and part 2, and we have the total. And then over here we have the interest rate given in the word problem. It has 0.08 given for one of them and a 0.18 given for the other. And we're not going to add up our interest rates. We're just going to leave it like that. Alright. Now how do I fill in the other two boxes? This one's a little bit tricky, but for the principal, we know that we have this much total that's loaned out. So I'm going to put $12,000 as a total loan. And we put a certain amount here. We don't know how much, so we're just going to put X. That's what we're looking for. How do I fill in the second one? Not with the second variable, but by saying the total minus X. Alright, and then we have one more piece that's given in the word problem, and it is that we received a total of $1,000 of interest. And we just have one more piece to fill in ourselves, and it's where we're going to get our equation from, but we want to fill in this line to come up with our equation. I do it by using the formula here, principal times rate. I'm going to get 0.08 times x, and I'm going to get 0.18 times 12,000 minus x. Alright, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to use this information to write my equation. Get 0.08x plus 0.18 times 12,000 minus x is equal to 1,000, because we're able to add up the different interest rates earned. And then I use my calculator to simplify some of these statements. I got 2,160 minus 0.18x, and when I solve this I get negative 0.10x, and I'm going to get negative 1,160. Now dividing by negative 0.10, I'm going to get 11,600. So we have 11,600 loaned at 8%. Make sure that your answer always matches whatever the word problem asks. Be it giving a word problem question, the question was how much was loaned at 8%, and make sure that this answer here answers that. We have 11,600 loaned at 8%. We're changing topics now. We're dealing with selling items and costs and amounts. The basic formula is just the multiplication, and we're still going to be using the charts that we did to help us set up the correct equations. So I just want to go through this question. We're talking about a tea store, and they have a new blend of tea. We have one type of tea for a certain amount of money per pound. We have a second type of tea for a different amount of money per pound, and we have a total amount that we want. So already I want to combine them. I'm going to go ahead and write the price or the cost is going to be cost per pound, and we also have times the number of pounds. Alright, so that's going to be our formula that we're using. I have two different types of tea that I want to combine. I need the two lines for the two different types of tea, and then I want to combine them, so I want to use a third line for total. We're going to put those names in here. Earl Grey, you can use initials or whatever you want. We have Orange Pekoe, and we have some information from the word problem about this. Alright, we know that together we want to make a blend, total, a blend, whatever you want to write in that third line. Okay, so we know that the Earl Grey costs $6 per pound, and that the Orange Pekoe costs $4 per pound. And we know that total I want to have 100 pounds. All of that was in the first few lines, and that's what I've underlined there. The selling price is $5.50 per pound. Alright, so what do we need to fill in? The rest of it. So I'm going to say that I don't know how much Earl Grey I have, but I know the Orange Pekoe is going to be in relation to that. I'm going to use multiplication to fill in the price, and multiplication here to be 4 times 100 minus x. And I'm also going to use multiplication here to get $550. That's from saying $5.50 per 100 pounds. And I'm going to take that and write an equation. So the price of the Earl Grey plus the price of the orange Pico is going to give me a total price of $550. I can solve this. Get 6x plus 400 minus 4x is equal to 550. I get 2x is equal to 150 and x is 75. What does this mean? X is 75. Well, recall that I put x over here. So that says number of pounds. So I'm going to translate that into word answers, and I'm going to say 75 pounds of Earl Grey. Therefore, 100 minus 75 would give me 25 pounds of orange Pico. Let's just double check. Did I answer the question that was asked? How many pounds of Earl Grey and orange Pico are required? Yep, that's it. So I'm going to say that's my answer. Alright, this question is still going to be the same as the last one. It does have a little bit of an extra element to it. We'll get to that, but basically we're combining two different pieces of candy which sell at two different prices. So we're going to put all the information into a chart. Once again, using our price is equal to cost per item times number of items, or cost per pound, number of pounds, whatever you want to write. We have two different types of candies that we're selling, and we want to combine them into one box. So we have a total. So we have caramels, and we have creams, and we want to combine. Alright. The price of the caramels cost 25 cents to produce, and the cost of the creams is 45 cents to produce. And we want to put in a box that holds 30 pieces total. Now, the price of the box is not going to be $12.50. So let's go ahead and write what we've done so far. We did the cost as 25 cents. We did the other cost as 45 cents. We know it holds a total of 30 pieces of candy total, but this selling price right here, that's selling price. That's not the same as production price. So if I want to make a profit of $3 and I'm selling it for $12.50, then I'm going to say $12.50 minus 3 equals $9.50 of production cost. And that is actually what we are looking at. So it costs $9.50 to produce. How much for each item? Well, we don't know how many of each items are going to be there. So we'll just use x here and 30 minus x here. We're going to use the multiplication to write 0.25x in this box and 0.45 times 30 minus x. We're going to say the caramels cost a certain amount to produce, plus the creams, which cost a certain amount to produce, will equal a total of $9.50 to produce. And we will write that here. So we'll get 20 caramels, and then 30 minus 20 gives me 10 of the other kind, 10 creams. Alright, so I sort of sped through the algebra portion of it. It's mostly just the setup that you're working on. So remember, fill in the parts from the word problem that make sense, and then at some point you're going to have to pick a variable, and that usually matches the same question where it says how many of each should be in the box. That's where you go number of items, that's how many of each. So we're going to put our variable here, and 30 minus our variable, and multiply it out to get to our equation. And that's this section.